Right now, as you're watching this, data suggests approximately 11,000 Americans are celebrating their 65th birthday today. By tonight, statistics suggest a significant portion of them will go to bed feeling lonely. And here's what should concern you. According to the US Surgeon General, lacking social connection can increase the risk of premature death as much as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. We're in the middle of what is often called the largest retirement wave in American history, with millions of people turning 65 this year alone. And at the exact same moment, we're facing what the Surgeon General has called an epidemic of loneliness. But here's what I find fascinating. When researchers studied over 2,000 retirees to understand what actually separates the happiest from everyone else, accumulated wealth was not the only factor. I'm Mark Fonville, certified financial planner and CEO of Covenant Wealth Advisors here in Virginia. After working with affluent retirees for over 20 years, I have observed a pattern that aligns with industry research. The retirees who struggle most aren't necessarily the ones who saved too little. They're often the ones who saved plenty, but may not have planned for a life worth retiring into. Today, I'm going to walk you through what the research actually shows. We'll cover what happy retirees do differently across 3 areas: how they spend their time, how they build relationships, and this one surprised me, how money actually fits into the picture. Stay until the end because I'll share the specific dollar thresholds where research suggests income may have less impact on day-to-day happiness. It's probably not what you expect. Now, this isn't about positive thinking or vague advice to what we call stay active. This is research backed, and I'll give you the specific numbers. So here's why this matters right now. According to AARP research, a significant percentage of adults 45 and older report feeling lonely. That's up from previous years. And here's something counterintuitive. Some studies suggest people approaching retirement age 45 to 59 report higher rates of loneliness than people who've already retired. The percentages vary by study, but the trend is concerning. The anticipation might be worse than the reality. But that's only true if you prepare correctly. The Surgeon General's advisory found that social isolation increases your risk of premature death by 29%. It's associated with 29% higher risk of heart disease, 32% higher risk of stroke, and this one really got my attention because my father passed away due to complications from Alzheimer's, approximately 50% higher risk of dementia in older adults. Meanwhile, industry surveys have found that nearly half of unhappy retirees admit to loneliness, and among the happiest retirees, the numbers are significantly lower. So what do the happy ones do differently? The first insight comes from researcher Wes Moss, who surveyed over 2,000 retirees trying to identify patterns. The happiest retirees have an average of 3.6 core pursuits. The unhappy ones, well, just 1.9. Now, what's a core pursuit? It's not just a hobby, it's something you're genuinely passionate about, something that gives your day structure and meaning. The top 4 across his research were travel, family, activities, golf or tennis, and volunteering. So consider a hypothetical example we'll call Margaret. She's 64, has $2.8 million portfolio, and in this scenario, she did everything right for decades. Maximized her 401k, kept expenses low, watched her money grow. When she retired last year, she had one pursuit: gardening. Imagine that within 6 months, she felt lost. Her husband still worked part-time, her kids lived across the country, she'd spend entire days where her most meaningful conversation was with someone at the grocery store. Contrast that with another hypothetical example, let's call him Robert. Similar age, similar portfolio, but Robert had spent years cultivating interest. He plays in a regular tennis league, volunteers at a local mentorship program, and travels with his wife to national parks. When he retired, his life got fuller, not emptier. The difference isn't personality, it's preparation. And here's something else the research shows. Retirees who volunteer are often more likely to report high levels of happiness. That's not just correlation, Giving your time to something bigger than yourself may change how you experience retirement. So I'm curious, how many core pursuits do you have right now? Not things you might do someday, but activities you're genuinely passionate about today. Go ahead and drop a comment below. I read every one. The second insight is about relationships, but not in the way most people think. Wes Moss's research found that happy retirees have an average of 3.6 close, intimate relationships. Unhappy retirees average just 2.6. One relationship may make a difference between a happy and unhappy retirement. And here's something specific. His research noted that retirees who live near at least half of their children were 5 times more likely to be happy. That's 5 times. I'm not saying you need to move, but I am saying that proximity matters more than most people realize when they're making retirement decisions. Clients tell us time and time again that they want to live near their children. As it turns out, the research backs this as well. There's another finding that surprised me. Happy retirees who attend religious services weekly are statistically more likely to report happiness than those who don't. Now, whether that's about spirituality, community, or simply having a consistent third place outside your home, the data suggests that regular community involvement does change outcomes. And personally, I know that I feel happier when I attend church, maybe because it's 1 hour a week that I have to express gratitude for the things I care about and allows me to reflect on the good in life. Perhaps you feel the same way. Now think about this. When you're working, you have built-in social structure. Colleagues, meetings, even the casual conversations in the hallway. When you retire, all of that can disappear quickly. The happiest retirees don't leave that to chance. They intentionally build social architecture, regular commitments that put them in contact with other people. Consider a hypothetical scenario involving Karen. She's 66, has a $3.2 million portfolio. By any objective measure, she's in great shape financially. But in this example, she is anxious, not about money, but about what her days would look like. Her husband is more introverted and most of her friends still work. A common strategy we discuss with clients isn't just about the portfolio, it's about the calendar. We often suggest identifying organizations a client cares about, setting up regular lunch dates with former colleagues, and joining a walking group that meets every Saturday, for example. For many, this makes retirement finally feel like theirs. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, just take a minute to like this video and subscribe. We put out new content every week on retirement planning topics that actually matter. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You'd expect me, a financial planner, to say that money is central to retirement happiness. The research says something different. Wes Moss found that $500,000 in liquid net worth is a notable inflection point. Below that threshold, money matters a lot more for happiness. Above it, the correlation actually levels off significantly. So let me say that again. Once you cross approximately $500,000 in investable assets, the data suggests more money doesn't automatically make you happier in retirement. Now, if you're watching this channel, you likely have significantly more than that, which means the path to a happier retirement probably isn't in your portfolio. It's in everything else we've been talking about. But here's what I find fascinating. The research also shows that happy retirees are twice as likely to have a formal, written financial plan. Not because the plan makes them richer, but because it may help reduce the anxiety of uncertainty. When you know your numbers, when you've stress tested your plan, you give yourself permission to actually live. There's one more finding I need to share because it applies directly to many of you. According to Moss, retirees who spend more than $700 per month on their adult children are significantly less happy than those who spend $500 or less. And those who spend over $2,000 monthly, well, they're 4 times more likely to be unhappy. I'm not saying don't help your kids. I'm saying that unlimited financial support without boundaries doesn't just affect your finances, it actually affects your happiness. Let me make this concrete. Consider another hypothetical example, Jim and Patricia, who were giving their adult daughter $2,500 a month to help with a house payment. They could technically afford it, but imagine that every time they wanted to take a trip, they felt guilty. Every time the market dipped, they worried. The generosity they intended as a gift had become a weight. Often the solution isn't just changing the amount, it is getting clarity on what they could give sustainably, communicating that to their daughter and releasing themselves from the open-ended obligation. So let's step back and think about what this really means. The happiest retirees aren't always the ones with the most money. They're not the ones who planned every detail perfectly. They're the ones who built intentional lives with purpose, with people, and with enough financial clarity to stop worrying. Here's the pattern across everything we've discussed. Happy retirees have multiple core pursuits. They have close relationships. They're twice as likely to have a written plan. The number isn't magic. What's magic is that they made deliberate choices instead of drifting into retirement and hoping it worked out. When Transamerica surveyed retirees, 89% said they were generally happy. And that's encouraging. But here's what most people don't know. A ProPublica study found that 56% of workers over 50 experience involuntary job separation before their planned retirement. More than half of people don't get to choose when they retire, which means if you're waiting until retirement to build these habits, you might not have the runway you think you have. Does that $500,000 threshold surprise you? I'd love to hear your reaction. Are you above that number and still worrying? Let me know again in the comments below. This is a conversation you'll want to have with your spouse, partner, or even a friend if you are single or widowed, because retirement happiness is rarely an individual project. So here's what I'd consider. First, audit your pursuits. Not someday hobbies, but genuine passions you're engaged in right now. If you count less than 3, that's a signal. Start cultivating one new interest this quarter, not after you retire, now. Second, map your social architecture. Who are the people you'll see regularly when your work calendar disappears? If you can't name at least 3 consistent relationships outside of work, start building them. Join something, commit to a regular gathering, create structure before you need it. And then third, get clarity on your numbers. Not because money buys happiness. We've established it doesn't, past a certain point. But because financial anxiety is one of the fastest ways to undermine everything else. When you know your plan works, you give yourself permission to live it. And then fourth, by the way, have the conversation about giving. If you're supporting adult children, make sure that support is sustainable and bounded. Generosity shouldn't come at the cost of your own well-being. Keep in mind, these are just general principles for illustration purposes, and your specific situation may vary, and I'd encourage you to work with a qualified professional before making any major decisions. The fundamental insight here is that what got you to retirement may not get you through retirement. The skills that made you successful, discipline, delayed gratification, focusing on accumulation, those were exactly right for the first half. But retirement requires a different set of skills, the ability to spend without guilt, to build relationships intentionally, to find meaning outside of work. And the research is clear. Loneliness is a significant threat, not running out of money, especially for people who save diligently. The happiest retirees aren't always the ones who accumulated the most. They're the ones who built lives worth living. There's a window in retirement when you have health, money, and time all at once. That window doesn't stay open forever. The happiest retirees treat that window as precious. They don't wait for permission. They don't defer joy. They've done the work to know their numbers, and they spend that window doing what matters with the people who matter. The question isn't whether you can afford to retire. The question is whether you've built a life worth retiring into. So if you know someone approaching retirement who's focused entirely on the money, send them this video. Sometimes the most valuable gift is a different way of thinking about the problem. If you'd like to see how this applies to your specific situation, we offer a complimentary retirement conversation at Covenant Wealth Advisors. No obligation, just a clear conversation about where you stand and what your options look like. So visit covenantwealthadvisors.com or use the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.